Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
Okay. All right. Quick look at my meter. Make sure that my microphone is actually recording this time. Oh my God. I am so sorry. Last week's recording, the video got captured, but the audio did not. Um, uh, Before we kind of started the recording, I was mentioning how uh, every so often OBS will send an update. And the last time I updated, which was just like the day before, or I think it was like the Friday before our previous episode. I said, okay, yeah, go ahead, do what you got to do. And apparently, it changed the source for my microphone, and I did not double check. That's my bad. I just assumed everything would still be the same as I left it. Nope. It went and changed a setting on me, and it failed to record the entire audio of that lesson. So anyway, eyeballing it now. And that's just it. I have, you guys can't really see, my second screen here, but I have a meter there on purpose so that I can visually monitor it. But do you think I paid attention to that? No, not at all. But anyway,
Hey, Doug.
yes.
Hey, Doug. Listen, I want to thank you and Diane for coming to the Plainville Senior Center and seeing our photography exhibit.
Oh my God, what a great time we had. You guys got some awesome photographers.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. They did great work.
they did. They did.
Mhm.
And I want to reiterate, my offer that I made you on that day, that I'd love to come in and do a workshop with your members,
I would like to
Yeah.
schedule, now we could talk later,
Yeah.
maybe in the fall or late summer, because I had, one of my main people is out recovering from hip surgery.
hmm
So I want her and her husband to be involved, so.
Oh yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
talk.
Yeah. Uh, Let me ask you, do any of them do any kind of photo editing?
We're
Is
not
that
really into photo
okay?
editing.
So basically, out of
Yeah,
camera. Okay.
yeah, and I'm glad there's such a thing as Facebook, because I can see what people do,
Right.
and I can know what what field trips to do, or what tutorials to
hmm
find on the internet. I don't come up with this stuff out of the top of my head. I go to other sources so I can say, well, this is what this person is saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll have to custom make a little workshop for them based,
Flowers, these people are into flowers and landscapes mostly. I have
Yep.
one person who's into birds.
Excuse me, sir.
So
You have a Facebook
I think
message.
to cover most of the people, I
hmm
think flowers and landscape.
Cool. We'll have to do something with that. All right.
And a little something about just a quickie part of the lesson to say, hey, this is what you have to do when you take a snow picture, because everybody takes a snow picture with perfect exposure, which is not perfect exposure.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. All right. Okay. So for tonight's session, all right, I had promised that I was going to be going out and getting new photographs to use for our sessions, and I've been doing just that. And for tonight's lesson, I did not have to go. Oh, actually, wait. Let me go over this real quick. Coming up with the CTPPA on the 15th, which is literally right around the corner here. From 7 to 9, we're doing a little, they call it a pro headshot workshop. It's not really a workshop. It's a bunch of us photographers getting together and saying, hey, this is how I do my headshots. How do you do your headshots? And we take pictures of each other, you know. So we, in the end of the workshop, we get new photos of ourselves, and you know, hopefully we learn something, but most of the time we're just having fun. But anyways, if anybody's interested, it's coming up
See you Wednesday.
on Wednesday. Yep, Bill will be there. Rick Saburi's studio in Cheshire. So if you're in the area, you know.
I took his course a long time ago when I
Yeah.
was a beginner.
Yep. And then you guys don't need this one, but if you know anybody who's, you know, just getting into photography, maybe somebody in your photo groups, Milford Photo is hosting the Beginners Photo Walk. It'll be downtown around City Hall and going behind there, behind the library, the duck pond there. So we'll be, you know, in that little area. So anyway, pass the information on to anybody. Okay, so like I said, I did not have to go very far for tonight's photo lesson. It was actually in my backyard. Okay, so years ago, wife and I decided we were going to clear out a bunch of the trees that were in our backyard in order to extend the property, because over the years it had overgrown with the previous owners, and we found all kinds of goodies back there. An old swimming above ground swimming pool that got destroyed and was just shoved back there, and all kinds of garbage. But we cleared it out and we left a couple of trees. Well, apparently a couple of the trees that we left didn't quite make it. They ended up dying off. And one of them started growing these little like flat mushrooms that kind of stick out from the trunk. And they got a pretty good size. And then the tree ended up toppling over. And I ended up, you know, cutting it with into logs for firewood. And just the stump, the turned over stump remained. And what was interesting is that the mushrooms that were originally horizontal, sticking out of the trunk, now were vertical. And then they kept growing, but they kept growing these little offshoots that were growing now horizontally. So I have this really strange mushroom on his dead trunk in the back of my yard. And I says, you know what? I'm going to go out and photograph it. I'm going to do some light painting. And unfortunately, I went when it was still a little bit too light, but I'm still able to use these photos. So let me show you what I have. Oh, actually, let me go ahead and share my screen. Share. Okay. Where am I? Okay. All right. So what I did is oops, that's not what I want. That's the final result, which you guys probably got a peek on Facebook anyway. Okay, so this is what the mushroom looked like. All right, and you can see this is the original one, and there's another one here that's kind of growing like this one here. And then the tree fell over and it started growing these horizontal ones here. All right, so we just got this really crazy looking fungus thing. And I had seen this photographer that what he does is he light paints it, but he light paints the underside with a flashlight so it looks like the mushrooms are, have this inner glow that's just glowing down um, into, glowing, casting a light from the mushroom down onto whatever it's on. So I took my little flashlight and I light painted it, so here's, one little spot here. And I basically just went here. I'm shining the light up into the underside of the mushroom. But if you can see, it was still relatively light. And
How many seconds were you shooting?
half 1/30th of a second.
Like a F5?
Yeah. So I was f5.6 because I kind of wanted to throw the woods that were on the back of the property line. I wanted to throw those into blur like you see here. But I didn't want to have too shallow a depth because I wanted to get a good portion of the mushrooms. All right, especially these front ones. But you can actually see this back one here. All right, and then this top one, which is a little bit forward back, they're a little bit fuzzy. All right. But these front ones, the vegetation in the front and this one here, they're in pretty good focus here. So that was my main concern, is having this relative area to be in sharp focus. All right. I could have gone f8, but I don't know. 6 of one, half dozen of the others. There is no right or wrong. It's just whatever preference. And that was my preference at the time. So 1/30th of a second, ISO 200, because that's my camera goes down to 200. And I had my little everyday carry little flashlight. You guys can see it. Actually, here, let me go. A little everyday carry flashlight. It's a single AA battery, LED, and I decided I was gonna, use that as my little illuminator. And when you do any kind of light painting, you want to pay attention to you kind of sort of have to pre-visualize what the end results are. So in this case, I knew I wanted to illuminate all the underside parts of the mushroom, especially the parts that are readily available or readily visible from this low camera angle. I had my camera almost to the ground, shooting up at the mushroom. So, these mushrooms here, I was able to see the undersides. I'm able to see a little bit of the underside of this one here. All right, but this one here and this one, they were more in line, with the way they were angled. So you can still light them. Hopefully, you never know. It may register, it may not register on the camera, but, try to get in there. It was a little tricky as well because some of these little spaces were very, very tight. But anyway, I just kind of went along and I just flashed little areas. The other thing I had to keep in mind is not only the undersides of the mushrooms that I needed to illuminate, but I also have to consider, okay, I'm going to give the illusion that these mushrooms are emitting a light, which they aren't. We're creating fantasy here, but imagine they're generating a light. What is the light falling on? So I had to keep that in mind. So I illuminated a little bit of the trunk as well, different areas of the tree trunk. I kind of tried backlighting the vegetation here a little bit. That worked okay. But, you know, these areas would be lit directly from these mushrooms. So imagine, you know, the light is being here and it's illuminating downward. Okay. So I just went along and different parts. There you can see me holding the flashlight. There's the flashlight again. Just hitting different areas and trying, you know, you have to kind of keep track of where you hit it and where you haven't, so that you make sure that all the parts of the mushroom or your subject gets hit by the light. I was even illuminating some areas that didn't even register. Here in this one, I don't know if you can see it, but the light is actually right there. You barely can see it because it's behind this kind of like large mushroom in the front, but you never know. So I light it, I shoot it. If there it is, it's a little stronger now. And I just moved along from mushroom to mushroom, illuminating the bottoms of all the mushrooms. There's my hand getting in the way. There's the bottom of that one, the bottom of that one, and so on. Okay. And then the different areas of the log, in order to create that cast light. Okay. Everybody follow that? Fairly simple. Yeah. All right. Once now, like I said, you know, I wasn't gonna wait until it got a little bit too dark, because, you know, wife was inside the house and we were getting ready to eat. So I just kind of shot out to the backyard, grabbed these before dinner. So anyway, and that's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. So I got all these images, but the nice thing is, you know, we have the power of Photoshop and we have the power of Lightroom that we can always enhance all of these images. All right. Now, I really didn't do any prep work with these in Lightroom. I just kind of throw them into Lightroom so I can, you know, go ahead and just look at all of these. And what I did is you know, like this one here, where my hand's in the way, I really can't use this. So, you know, I just make sure that I, you know, don't select it. But I just go ahead and pick, you know, like that one's not really a good one. There are better ones. So what I did is I went and selected a bunch that I felt really captured all the different parts that I lit. And then I opened up in Photoshop. Okay. Before I switch over to Photoshop, I want to tell you, I'm actually going to cover two different methods of doing this. One is a light painting method. The other one is just taking a regular static shot and actually lighting it in Photoshop. So you can even do this technique without having to light paint anything. In my opinion, doing it with a flashlight and light painting it gives it a little bit of a more natural look than actually, you know, painting in the light in Photoshop. So I'll show you both ways. Okay, so what I did is I literally just went and said, okay, we're gonna, take this full range of images and edit in open as layers in Photoshop. All right, so right click, edit in open as layers in Photoshop. Okay. And where's my Photoshop? Here it is. Okay. Um, I'm going to go through this one here that I've already edited. Okay, rather than usually I just start the edit from beginning, but because we're working with a lot of files here. You can see I opened up a good 20 files, I think, 20 images. All right. It would take forever. It's a little slow when you're dealing with this many layers. So rather than slow down the process, I figure what I'll do is I'll just kind of go through and walk through the process. It's relatively simple. Okay. So the first thing here, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and turn off all these masks. Okay. So what happens is you're going to get a stack of images that you've gone and lit. Okay. But because we're lighting different little areas, what we need to do is we need to composite all those little areas into one final image. Okay. So whenever you do any kind of compositing, I typically start off with a base image. Okay. And for my base image, in this case, it doesn't matter which one you start off with. Oftentimes I say, take a blank shot with no editing. But in this case, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you start because we're just going to be adding areas of light. Okay. So as you can see here, I have a ton of layers that were stacked in. All right. So the first thing you want to do is click on your top of the layer, shift click on the bottom layer, and it's going to select them all. Then come over to file, or edit. Where is it? Auto align layers. Auto align layers. Okay. And I usually just stick to the auto one. All right. And you're going to say, okay, I've already done it, so I'm not going to do it again. All right. And what that does is, even though I shot this on a tripod in order to make sure that I didn't move. Okay. But as I'm walking around with my flashlight, sometimes things can get a little clumsy and you can knock the camera and it can, skew it just a little bit or whatever the case is. Just to make sure that everything lines up, do the auto align. It only takes a couple of seconds and it lines everything up. And that way, as you're working with each layer, each layer is lined up with the one above it. So everything's going to line up. You don't have to worry about misalignments. Okay. But definitely, if you're going to do this kind of stuff, you want to make sure that your camera is locked in position so it doesn't move. All right. Now that I have all my layers aligned, okay, what we're looking at is the very top of my stack, okay? And it's hiding everything below it. So the first thing I do is I hide all the layers except the bottom layer. Okay. All right. And this is my bottommost layer that we're going to start off with. Okay. And for this one, I actually lit a little bit of this here just because. Okay. But now what I want to do is I want to add every consecutive layer one at a time. Okay. So I have my base layer. I'm going to go up one layer. Okay. And take a note as to what it is lighting. Okay. All right. Here, actually, let me go ahead. I'm just gonna duplicate that so you can see it. All right. I'm just gonna delete that. Okay. So here's my layer that I'm adding, and I'm adding it to the base layer. Okay. So you can see that I'm lighting kind of like the underside of this mushroom. Unfortunately, I didn't get the whole entire thing, but in reviewing my stack, I noticed that there's a later image that has the other side, the other half of this mushroom here that I missed. So I can always add the light at that point to the side that's missing. Okay. So the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and create a mask. All right. And the easiest way is just go down to the bottom of your layers panel, and this little symbol that's the white square with the black circle, that's your mask. You're going to add a mask. Okay. Get yourself a nice round brush. I usually say get a soft round brush, just because it gives you that feathered edge that's really nice. Okay. We're going to size it down. We're going to make black as my foreground color. All right. The letter X is going to toggle between the foreground color and the background color, right? And if you don't have black and white, the letter D is going to reset it to black and white, and the letter X, oops, come on. All right, what the heck's going on here? Cancel. Oh, okay, there we go. The letter X will toggle back and forth. All right. So we want black as my foreground color. And let me zoom in a little bit. Now we have to be very selective about what we want to mask. All right. And in this case, this is lighting the underside of this mushroom here. Okay. But if you can see, I have a little bit of spill from the flashlight that's hitting all of this over here as well. I'm going to ignore that. That's going to be lit from another frame. Okay. So with black as my foreground color, I'm going to make sure that my opacity is at 100%. Okay. And my flow is at 100%. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and actually I am going to literally paint out. All right. What I'm doing is I'm actually masking out. All right. You can see I am masking out. All right. Now, the reason I tend to do this is because I can see exactly what part of the subject I'm painting on, and I can see the actual effect taking into place, although it's the opposite, okay? So now I can go in, and if I want to, I can, make any corrections to make sure that I only get the underside of that mushroom, okay? And then once I'm happy with that, I will go ahead and invert that mask, okay? Control I, Command I will invert it, okay? And now you can see that the only thing that got lit is that part of the mushroom, all right? And if anything needs to be corrected, we can just, kind of clean it up a little bit if need be. Okay? So my goal here is to add the light to the areas that I want, all right? Another benefit of using a mask is that if for any reason you happen to have, one spot of light that was a little bit too bright, we can always tone down that mask with our density, all right? Oh, no, we can't. I'm sorry, I reversed it. Proved me wrong. Okay. But we can, in a way, not that way. We would have to go to our brush, and instead of white, or which punches a hole, we could go with a gray. So now we can use our grayscale, okay, to kind of minimize it. All right, so in this case, we had 100% white, so maybe I'll go to, 60% white, 70% white. All right, you can see it right here. The HSB, hue saturation brightness. All right, and if we go ahead and paint that in, you'll notice that it's still painting in the light, but it's now not as bright. All right, so we can control how much we want to bring in. Okay, in this case, I don't mind that very bright. Okay, so we're going to keep it bright. All right, and what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the next level, and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to add, all right, here is this little section here, okay? If I turn it off, turn it on, you can see it, okay? Let me just delete that test. Okay. So we have that layer, we have this layer. We're gonna go to this one here. All right. And we're just basically gonna go up one layer at a time, add a mask, okay, and we're going to say, okay, we're going to reveal the light for that area, okay? And just so you see what the mask looks like, soft feather edge, nothing fancy about these masks, all right? All of this is very simple stuff that you guys should already know how to do, okay? All right, I got that little dark spot there. I'm just brightening it up, okay? And we move up, all right? Here we're hitting the tops, all right? This one here hits this back section here, all right? Take a look at there, all right? Just brightened it up a little bit. All right, now the reason I brightened that up, okay, One, again, I'm keeping in mind that these mushrooms are going to be emitting light, so it's going to be lighting its environment. Okay, but the other thing is that I kind of didn't discuss it earlier. I mentioned that when I did this, it was it was getting close to sunset, but you can see there's still a lot of light coming through in the sky behind. I knew at this point that I would need to tone that down in post, to darken it down in post. So my goal right from the get-go was to make sure that I darkened my sky when I did my edits. Okay. So knowing that my sky, my background is going to be going to be darkened, I had to make sure that what I'm light painting is going to contrast against that dark background. All right. So therefore, that little bit of background part of the log got lit. Okay. And then we just go up, keep going up. All right. Keep going up, adding another layer. All right. This one is down here. Another one. All right. Here's the inside of that little mushroom. All right. Everybody understands this part, right? Any questions on how to do these simple masks? Anybody getting lost? Okay. All right. All right. It's just you take your time, find the frame that has the light on it, and then just, you can always toggle it on and off. If sometimes the light's very dim and you say, okay, what is it that it's affecting? Toggle it on and off. That lets you see it. Okay. Here's that cast shadow here and this cast shadow here. All right, because I kind of lit it a little bit from the underside. You can see it's casting a shadow above. All right, so this one just kind of gets rid of that shadow above there. All right, and I should have another one that kind of, oh no, this one's down at the bottom. All right. Oh, there's that other half of the mushroom I mentioned earlier. Okay. At some point, I'll have another one. Here's revealing some texture.
Hey, Doc,
Yeah.
I got a question about that one you just showed. In doing that, did you turn that plant into a layer and then just paint behind, you know what I mean, to separate that out? Or did you just go with that other layer and paint around the leaves? I guess if I were looking at this, I would think about making a layer out of just those leaves in front so I could work on the stuff in back of the leaves.
On that one, let's see, what did I do? No, I didn't. I actually painted over what was already there. Okay. But that's a good point, because sometimes you'll find that as you're trying to light one thing, the spill from the flashlight is going to light something else that gets kind of in the way. And you have to pay attention to those little details and make your masks appropriately. The nice thing about overshooting also is that if one layer in particular doesn't quite work, all right, you should have another layer that will compensate for it. Okay. From having done the edit already, I'll tell you right off the bat, I did miss a spot. All right. And it's kind of visible here on this mushroom here. All right, you can see the glow of the flashlight right there. I totally missed that edge. But you know what? It still worked out. It still worked out. Okay. All right, we're gonna keep going, moving up my layer stack. There, I'm lighting. In these particular cases, I wanted to make sure that because there were a lot of little crevices in this, pile of mushrooms, I wanted to make sure that I lit all these little crevices because I knew that would add a little bit more realism to the fact that these are glowing mushrooms, because the mushrooms, were in all these little crevices there. I wanted to make sure that it looked like those were being lit by the mushroom as well. Okay. So here's another little crevice. All right. You can see it right in the center there. If I turn it off, turn it back on. All right. Tiny little thing that had I not been thinking about it, I would have, overlooked it. Okay. Keep going up. Here's another one that adds a little bit more texture. All right. This one here, I backlit the foliage. In this particular case, it was like, I had a choice whether I wanted to light that vegetation on the side. And the more I kept thinking about it, it says, well, it's kind of sitting in front of all these mushrooms. It would naturally receive a little bit of light. The problem was I couldn't manipulate the light to, behind it so it looked natural, because there wasn't enough room for me to properly light it. So I said, well, you know what? It'll be a little bit, the direction will be a little bit off, but at least there'll be light on it. And, in the end, it worked out. But I actually had the flashlight camera left out of frame where I actually had room to manipulate, rather than trying to figure out how do I get all this greenery backlit, without having my hand and the flashlight in the frame, behind the stuff that I needed to light. Okay. All right. Adding some more light to the background. In this case, again, my thought was, all right, I'm going to be darkening that background. All right. If all this gets darkened down, all right, I wanted to make sure that all these areas were top lit so that it would create a little separation. The other thing is, if light is coming from here, all right, it would naturally, I would assume that light would be hitting the top of the mushroom underneath it. Okay. So that one kind of lights the top there. Okay. Moving on. I added a little bit more intensity to that underside. All right. This bottom one and that little dark corner here. Okay. All right. And then everything, this is what it looks like unlit and lit. All right. Any questions on how to do this? All right. Just simple masks. All right. Lighting the having the light come through into various parts. Okay. I'm not worried about any kind of layer blends. All right. There are other methods of doing this with layer blends where we actually have the light come through each layer. But I figure I'll keep it simple, something very easy to do. All right. And very easy to follow. Okay. All right. I then took my entire stack and I grouped it. All right. And the only reason to group it is just make it a little bit easier to view in the stack. Okay. Now, I did not have any kind of color filter on my flashlight. This is just white light on the, coming through. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to give this otherworldly effect. All right. So now what I need to do is I need to change the color of the light from a white light to something otherworldly. And for me, I wanted a kind of like a golden color. Okay. A gold color. So what I've did next was I created a solid color adjustment. All right. And we go down to the bottom of our layer panel. All right. Right here. And this half white, half black circle. All right. If we click on that, the first one is solid color. Okay. And what that does here, let me change the blend mode and let me hide. All right. It's going to give you this. Okay. Just a solid color. All right. And you can pick whatever color you want. All right. And like I said, I knew I wanted, a vibrant, not yellow. I wanted something kind of like sunsetty feeling. So this kind of golden color is what I decided to go with. All right. Covers the whole entire area. But now what I want to do is I wanted to intermix with the layer below. All right. So what I did is I changed the blend mode from normal to color. Okay. And all this does is think of it this way. It assumes that below that layer, it's a black and white photo. And it just tints that black and white photo. All right. That's probably the best way to really think about this. All right. And that's all it does is it creates a color cast on the underlying image. Okay. But this is all I needed because now what I need to do is mask all the areas that had the light. All right. And my mask, you can see nothing fancy. All I did was I went in, and in this particular case, what I did is, actually here, I'll do it like this. Let me hide that. Okay. Solid color, kind of like this gold tone. Say okay. Normal to color. All right. I have a regular mask. All right. So you can see when you first launch it, it creates a regular mask. Okay. Actually, let's make this a little bit darker. There we go. All right. We invert it. All right. Make sure your mask is selected. Control Command I will invert it. All right. Then again, nice round brush. soft round brush, all right, one of the default brushes, okay, and with white as your foreground color, all right. We're just going to go in and we're going to paint where we want this yellow light to be. All right. Now, obviously, it's going to be on the underside of all these mushrooms. All right. And if you make a mistake, X will toggle you to black. Okay. And I just want to hit the undersides of all these mushrooms. All right. And I'm painting at 100%. Okay. Painting at 100%. All right. And I'm kind of being a little bit not very careful here. Okay. And maybe I'll hit the little bit here on the underside of these little things. Okay. All right. Now, once I have that, I can now go and reduce the opacity of my brush. I'm going to go maybe to like 20%. All right. So we reduce the opacity. The number 2 gives me automatically takes me to 20%. Okay. And wherever that light is being shown down onto the tree, I'm going to go ahead and start painting some of that light in. All right. Keeping in mind light fall off and all that good stuff. Okay. And the closer we are to the mushroom, maybe we'll paint in a little bit heavier. All right. And these crevices, maybe. All right. Okay. And that's pretty much it. And of course, use your bracket keys to change the size of your brush. Okay. And if you make a mistake, letter X. There we go. I want to just take it off a little bit of the edge there. Maybe we get some light over here. Okay. All right. And that's pretty much how you light those mushrooms. Okay. Any questions on that?
When I first saw this on the thumbnail that you had, I think you put it up on Wednesday.
Yep.
Or, a couple days ago. I was really wondering how you did all that because I thought that was very cool.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of, burning myself, but never this elaborate. But I could see the advantage to it. Yeah, that was a lot of, for me, it would be a lot of work because it's all, pick and pit, each key. But if I get used to it, I mean, you could breeze right through it.
Yeah, but at this point, everything that I cover here are skills that I know you have. I know you have them. All right.
I'll pick them up.
Um,
I have short-term memory,
but yeah, you also have to understand. I've done this a couple times already, just in preparation to this. That's why I can breeze through this so easily now. Okay, but when I first did it, I had to take my time. I think the best way is to learn all the different layers, and kind of in my head track what's what for as I'm planning, because as you're looking at each layer, it's hiding everything below it. So you're only seeing one little light here, one little light here, one little light here. And you have to kind of, in your mind, keep track of it and say, okay, well, here for the underside, I want that to be like 100% strength. Here, it's a cast light, so it's going to be a little less intense. So you have to kind of keep these things in your head floating there until you actually start seeing become more concrete.
Well, I was watching how you had everything organized to the side, and by placing your mouse over each one, it'll pop up. It'll tell you exactly where you are, and that would be, for me, that'd be super beneficial because I'll forget, 2 pictures down. But
Yeah.
you're right. Just by going over, it says, okay, I got this at 50%. I got the next one at 24%.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing that I'm kind of cheating here, all right, but
good. I love cheating.
but because you brought it up, the reality is you may have extra layers that you don't need, all right, which I did, all right. So as you go through that layer stack and you're toggling them on and off, all right,
Yeah.
you can say, oh, I already have a layer that kind of does that. Okay. And then at that point, you can say, okay, well, which one of these 2 layers is the better one? All right. Maybe one's a little bit more intense than the other one. Maybe one covers a little bit more area than the other. All right. So you can say, okay, I don't need both because they're both doing the same thing. I'm just going to select the better of the 2 and get rid of the other one. Okay. But by being able to toggle them on and off, all right, you'll be able to see exactly where everything is. Okay.
Yeah, that's super.
All right. All right. And okay. Oops. Let's turn that back on. All right. So at this point, I'm pretty happy. Well, let me zoom in. I got a little bit crazy here. Let me toggle that 100%, clean that edge up, clean that up a little bit. I missed a little spot here. All right. So at this point, you can go in and you can kind of sort of clean it up a little bit. And you can say, okay, this area needs a little bit more light. This area, I missed. Okay. All right. So we took care of our foreground. Now what I want to do is take care of the background. Okay. And this is where a little color theory comes into play. And I know you can look all the way over there and get a hint as to what color I use, but if we're using yellow, what I want to do is I want to use the opposite color to counterbalance my background with my foreground. All right, so if I warmed up my foreground, I want to cool off my background. All right, so now I already have, all right, before I get myself all confused here, okay? Always going to be 3 things that you're manipulating in your images, okay? If you remember, color, texture, and light. Duh. Color, texture, and light. Okay? Those are the 3 things you're always going to be manipulating. Okay? We added our light to the foreground, to our subject. We added it. Okay? We've just added the color. Okay? On the foreground. We haven't done it to the background. All right? The other thing is texture. Okay? But in this case, texture was done in camera. All right, so we have a lot of texture that's natural to the to the foreground. All right, with all the bark and the mushrooms and all the textures there. Okay, but because that's in sharp focus, okay, in order to get that texture separation, I made sure that my background was blurry. Okay, so that gives us our separation. All right, so we separated it right out of camera with texture. I separated it just now partly with color and partly with our light. Okay, we need to finish up those two other parts by making the sky darker and making the sky cooler. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and take care of the color first. All right. So what I did is I again threw another, let's see, there we go. Normal, color gradient. Okay. I picked a fairly intense blue, okay, but not too bright and also not too dark, all right, because remember, it's going to intermix with the layer below, okay, so we changed that to color blend mode, all right, and you can see that again, it assumes that the layers below it are black and white, and it's just going to tint it. All right. And you can, at this point, you can say, okay, well, maybe I want a darker blue. Maybe I want a, more of a purpley blue, more of a cyan blue, whatever it is. Okay. Salt and pepper to taste. Okay. So maybe I'll go there. All right. And you can manipulate this in real time and actually see the effect. All right. And all you have to do is just ignore the fact that it's also affecting the foreground. We'll take care of that with a mask, but we're going to just take a look at what it's doing to that tree line in the background. And we're going to say, okay. All right. Then we're going to go ahead and paint in. All right. In this case, we painted in, or we painted out the areas we did not want. All right. And that meant all that foreground stuff. All right. Why is that should be color. There we go. Okay. So all I did was literally just, you can see, and I wasn't all that neat about it. Okay. And I just go ahead and painted out all my foreground stuff, leaving the background. Okay. All right. I think the trickiest part was getting around these leaves. All right. But again, as you can see, I didn't do that neat of a job. All right. Finally, the last thing is, all right, that background is still a little bit too bright and too intense. Okay. And also the foreground's a little bit too bright, too intense. All right. It needs to be darkened down in order for this light to really come forward. Okay. Because how do you make intense light? You put it against dark. Okay. Again, it's about contrasts. All right. And all I did was I create a curves adjustment. As you can see, I brought my whites down. I brought my midtones down, darkened everything down. Nothing on the mask. All right. It's just straight, darkened everything down. All right. If you don't like the intensity of the blue on that background, all right, again, we can just make it a little bit more muted, a little bit darker. Okay. So it really looks down. Okay. And I said, all right, it's still very, very intense blue. Okay. We're going to need to knock it down. So what I did is I have opacity and I have fill. All right. Either one will do the same thing. We just bring the opacity down a little bit. Okay. And it will knock that blue down, or we can take our fill down and it's going to give us the same thing. Okay, so either way, I think I went down to like a good 40-ish, 40, 50%. Okay, so it's still in the cool range, but not so blue that it looks like alien sky, you know. Okay. And that is pretty much it for light painted layers, laying in each layer one at a time. All right. And then once you have your final composite, coloring the foreground, coloring the background, and controlling your contrast. Any questions on this?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Back to the original, excuse me, back to the original gathering of the photos. You're out in the field there.
Yep.
So you had one flashlight, right?
Correct.
And you said you were shooting at a 30th of a second?
Correct.
So you really didn't have time to move it. It was kind of like, I'm going to take it here, hold the snap a picture. Is that what you're-
Yeah, I did wiggle the flashlight just a little bit. I didn't cover a lot of areas. All right. I wasn't going for wide area coverage because I only did have 30th of a second. All right.
Okay.
But I also did not want that hot spot that a flashlight creates.
Right.
All right. So by wiggling just enough to keep it within the area that you want, softens the edges and gets rid of that hot spot. Just little tiny bit of wiggle. That's all you need. Okay.
So it sounds like if you were going to go do this again, you might put a little diffuser on front of that flashlight or some. I got one of those lights that has LED, has different colors and tones and stuff.
Yep.
It seemed like that would. Like something like.
Yeah, you could. Well, one of the best ways to do it is do a test, see what your flashlight does.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, I did kind of sort of rush this because dinner was waiting. I should have.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I should have waited until it was a little bit darker. Then I wouldn't have to worry so much about that background sky. And the flashlight would have been a little bit more intense right from the get-go. But you can see it still worked.
I was just thinking back to when we did that first light painting workshop with the
guitar.
with the mandolin. Well, before that, the mandolin.
Oh, the mandolin.
way
Okay.
back when.
Yeah.
You know, and you brought in a bag of tools or toys of let's try this light.
Yeah.
Let's try this light. You know, so. that was
Yes.
interesting.
Yes. Yeah. But here in this particular situation, I was out in the field and I had two flashlights with me. One was my night vision flashlight, which has a red gel on it, and then my little everyday carry. And I figure I'll just pull out my everyday carry, you know, and it worked. It worked. Okay. And yeah. Any other questions on this? All right. All right. It's complex. I'll admit. Okay. It's a complex subject with lots of nooks and crannies. So it requires a little bit of a methodical, going through with the light painting, all right, to make sure that you get everything. All right. But like I said, there's also a different way. All right. And let me show you that way. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close this. We don't want to save it. Okay. Go over to, all right, and we'll open this one up. Okay. Give it a second. All right. And now what I want you to notice, all right, is first of all, let me make this, oh, wrong one. Let me make this, bring this out here. All right. First thing you notice is that there's only one image layer. Okay. It's not multiple image layers. Okay. I do have a very similar layer stack. Okay. But these layer stacks are done with curves adjustments. All right. I'm actually using curves to do the lighting for me. All right. And what I want you to notice that it has a totally different effect than the previous technique. Okay. Which one you want to use, it's really dependent on you. Okay. Had I waited for it to get a little bit darker, I may have gone closer to this look. Okay. But you know, I didn't. Okay. All right. So let me go ahead and turn all these layers off. All right. This is my base layer that I started with. All right. It's just a blank shot, absolutely nothing lit. No flashlight on this whatsoever. Okay. So now we need to take into consideration the same exact things we did with the previous one, we have to apply to this one. All right. And that is we want to light all the undersides of the mushrooms. And we want to create that kind of like the fall off. Okay. In order to not get overly confused or lost in our process, and also to be able to go back and correct any mistakes, you know, fairly easily, we're going to break it up into chunks. We're not going to try to do this all on one layer. That would be ludicrous, because if you mess up, you would need to redo your whole entire layer. All right. So what I said to myself here is, okay, I'm going to dedicate a layer to one particular mushroom at a time. So I started off with this mushroom here just because it was the easiest. All right. All right. And then I moved to the next one, and I moved to the next one, and so on. Okay. Each mushroom literally has its own layer. Okay. So how do we do this? All right, let me go ahead and turn these masks off. Oh, we don't need that one. Okay. We create a layer, or a curves adjustment. Okay. And as you can see, it's a very, very intense curves adjustment. All right. Now let me go ahead and turn this off. I'm going to create a new one here. Let me just move. I'll move this to the top just so that it's okay. If we look at the histogram, okay, if we look at the histogram that is being displayed on our curves adjustment, all right, you can see this is our midtone. This is our 50% gray, okay? Everything from 50% gray to white is very low, all right? It's not a lot of influence. Where we have the majority of the influence or the majority of our pixels is in the darks and shadows, all right? And you can tell by this extreme mountain here all the way to the left-hand side, okay? And then just before our midtones, we have this slope that just kind of like descends down into the lights, okay? That lets me know that the majority of our pixels are on this side of the 50%. Make sense? Okay. Actually, if we look at it, the majority of our pixels are from this 25%, 25% and darker. All right, because remember, this is 100% white, 100% light. This is 0% light. All right, this is 25% light. Okay, the majority of our pixels are from that 25% to 0. Okay, so that means that in order to really affect those pixels, my curve needs to be literally way over here. All right. So you can see now if I come all the way here, I'm blowing everything out. Let me move this over. Okay. I'm blowing everything out, but I don't care about that background blowing out. What I'm looking at is I want to really, really brighten the undersides of these mushrooms. All right, so that means I'm going to go ahead and add a point and just really, really push the brightness in the underside of those mushrooms. Everybody get that? Okay. All right. That's literally all I did with all these curves adjustments. Okay. So, okay. All right. Now, the other thing you're saying is, okay, well, I'm seeing a lot of yellow. Okay. I'm not seeing white. Okay. And each one is just going to multiply. Okay. All right. The other thing I did was, in order to intensify the brightness, I changed from normal, all right, to a linear dodge. Okay. So from normal, that's what normal looks like, to linear dodge. Okay, which is an additive. It adds the lightness to it. Okay. And then the other thing that I did is I went into my blue channel. Okay. And I went from neutral. All right. Here's my line. Okay. And I just dragged it down. Okay. To remove blue. So if you remove blue, you are adding its complement, yellow. Okay. So the opposite of blue is yellow. By dragging it down, we're adding yellow. And we're getting that initial yellow glow to our light. Make sense? Okay. So this layer is doing a lot of heavy lifting right off the bat. Okay. Then I created a black mask, and then with a soft round brush, white as my foreground color, I painted in the light. Okay, I painted in the light. All right, so let me see. Let me duplicate this. Let me turn that off. Let me, all right, soft brown brush. Okay. Opacity set at 100%. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. Okay. And I'm literally just painting in the light. Okay. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky because there are these areas in between the leaves.
Quick question.
Yep.
In Photoshop, can you lasso this with a lasso?
Yes. Yes. You can, but to be honest, that's kind of time consuming. All right. I find it's a little bit easier to just, you know, paint it in. Don't worry about being neat at this point. All right. Because what we're doing is we are working with a mask. Okay. Let me move this up. All right. And then,
Thank you.
yep. And I'll show you how we clean it up in a bit. All right. So I then made my my brush larger. Okay. And we bring it our opacity down to 10, maybe 20%. All right. So press the number 2 to get you that 20%. Okay. And we just touch, tap, 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 tap. All right. And all these areas that get illuminated, now suddenly we get all that light in. Okay. Bring my brush back down to a normal size. All right. All these areas that I went a little bit too far, X makes my foreground black. Okay. And now, we bring the opacity back up to 100%. 0 will be the shortcut key to bring it up to 100%. And now I can go ahead and we can zoom in. Okay. And we can clean up these edges. All right. All right. And if we go a little bit too far, we just hit X and we can paint back in. All right. And you can see now that I am able to really clean up these outer edges to make them a little bit more, realistic. Okay. And then just go back and forth between, a black and a white brush. All right. And you can clean up all these edges. All right. Now, you mentioned doing the lasso tool. All right. So for the most part, all this can be cleaned up without it. Okay. All you got to do is just vary the size of your brush and then just clean up. All right. But if at any point you say, okay, you know what, I think it's going to be easier to lasso it, we just get our lasso tool. All right. Make sure that you are in the plus or the add. Okay. So that way, every time you draw a mask, it'll add it. And then with your Alt key or Option key, just press and hold and you can remove from the mask. All right. Otherwise, you're in normal additive mode. Okay. And at that point, you just go back to your brush, and you can brush out those areas. Control Command D to deselect. L for the next lasso, and you can get, these little tight areas. Okay, so yes, you can do the lasso. All right. If you find that just working with the brush by itself is not working for you. Make sense? Okay. All right. All right. At this point, all right, I did one mushroom. All right. I said, okay, what mushroom I'm going to pick next? I created a new curves adjustment. Okay. I changed it to actually what I did here. What I did is I Control J, all right, which duplicates the previous adjustment layer. So that way I don't have to worry about, doing my light setting and doing my, turning it to yellow and changing it over to linear dodge. Okay. The only thing I had to do was I had to clear out the mask. All right. So just, Control Delete will clear out the mask, and you can just paint in the new mask. And then you just repeat the process. All right. Everybody understand what I did there? All right. Control J duplicates it. All right. It'll duplicate the mask. All you do is just wipe out that mask, get a new mask, but it keeps all the settings saved. All right. The only thing is that I noticed in some areas, if it's a little bit too hot, you just go back into your curves adjustment and you make whatever modifications you need to in order to balance it out. That's all you have to do. All right, but basically Control J, Command J duplicates it, creates the same adjustment. You wipe out the mask, paint in the new area, and you can see I went literally mushroom by mushroom. Okay, mushroom by mushroom. All right. Once I had everything lit, okay, at this point, it should look, aside from the fact I've already started putting yellow into this, okay, aside from that fact, this should look very similar to what we did previously. Except in this case, we're using curves adjustments. We're not using actually light painted layers. That's the only difference. Everybody follow so far? Okay. At this point, the next two steps is exactly the same thing. We create a solid color adjustment. All right. My first layer is going to be that nice gold tone. Change it to color. Okay. And you can see it takes it from that bright yellow and kind of gives it that gold tone. Okay. And at this point, I just used a very, very, very soft round brush at about, again, 20% opacity. And I painted in that glow onto my image. Okay. So before, after. So you can see all it does is it takes it from that intense yellow and just gives it that gold goldish color. That's all it does. Same thing that we did previously, except the previous one we went from white light to gold. Here we're going from yellow light to gold. Okay? All right. Next step is to add our blue color grade. Okay. And take our mask, Control I, inverts it. Okay. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, we take our nice soft round brush. Okay. 100% flow, 100%. Where's my brush? Black as my foreground color. All right, what happened to my brush? Oh, there it is. All right. All right, and we can literally say, okay, we're going to actually let's make this part here a little less intense. All right, so whoa, I know what I'm doing. Okay. All right, where my leaves are. All right, instead of going 100%, maybe I'll go 20%. All right, and I'll warm up those leaves here. Okay, 100% here. Okay. All right, maybe we make that a little bit darker. All right, and all right, that's 100%. We'll bring that down to about 50. Okay. And now we basically replicated what we did previously. Okay, let me get rid of those little holidays here. All right, looking a little bit better. And then here what I did is I kind of went a little bit different. Okay, I did an overall darkening on everything, which you can see now kind of brings out that glow a little bit more, puts more emphasis on the glowing mushrooms and not so much the environment. Okay, but you can see that the background was still coming through a little bit too intense. So I created a mask to kind of, all right, you can see I actually went very carefully with my background mask on this, all right, in order to just select that sky and bring that sky down, okay. I could have used a range mask, but I felt like being creative, okay? The only thing, if you'll notice, these corners here, this corner here and this corner here, all right? With black, it would have made those corners way too dark because I had the underlying curves adjustment would darkened it, and now I take another darkening I'm sorry, where was it? Yeah. I put another darkening one. What I did is I said, okay, I'm going to use that for my vignette. All right, so these corners, I just took a nice large soft round brush And by painting in white, actually, let me see if I can replicate that for you. Let me bring it. Let me bring this here. Okay. Show you what I mean. Okay. See how this corner is pretty well lit. I went to 20%. 20% opacity on my mask, white as my foreground color. And I just kind of dabbed in and I burnt down that corner. All right. Just to make it a little bit darker. And I did the same thing with the opposite corner. So these two corners got burnt down, which brings our attention to where our subject, where we want them to go. Okay. And of course, we burnt down the sky, so it's not as bright. Okay. The other thing that I did a little bit different on this one than I did from the previous one is I just added a high pass sharpened layer, just to give it a little bit more pop. And let me zoom in here. Okay, before, after, so you can see it just gives me that little bit of sharpening on and brings out that detail in the mushrooms. Hopefully you guys can see it. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So this, from a single image, just using curves adjustments and artificially lighting it by pushing we're pushing that curves adjustment to an extreme in order to lighten up those dark pixels. Okay. All right. Two different techniques to get very similar results, slight difference. Which one do you like better? That's entirely up to you. But these are
like the background on this one. You can almost see just a little bit of green left in it.
Yep.
It's not black. You got the blue sky. It looks very real.
Yeah.
It does look realistic. It's not like it's AI. It looks great.
Right. Exactly. And it's just it's a matter of finding that balance. All right. Now, one thing that you will notice that this particular way of doing it does not give you the nuances of lighting that the other method does. So, for example, the most noticeable way to point this out is if we look at this little greenery here. Okay. The other method, actually, you know what? Here, let me go to Lightroom and I will pull both those up. Let me pull those two up. Side by side. Okay. So you can see that, all right, the one right above me, that was done. That was the second one that we did, where everything was done with layers. Okay. And the one over there, that was done with the light painting. Okay. So you can see that the light painting has a lot more nuance than this one does. All right. And you can see it in the fact that, when you compare the little side bush there, okay, I have a deeper shadow here. I could have lit that. Okay. I could have lit that. All right. But I don't know if I would have pulled that kind of texture detail had I artificially lit it. All right, because that was pretty dark to begin with. Okay, I'm not sure I'm not confident that I could have pulled that kind of detail. Okay. The other thing is we are using blend modes. All right. I could have enhanced that one with with blend mode by all means. All right. It would have probably brought up to that next level. Okay. Considering that I was working with fairly weak light to begin with. So adding a curves adjustment to brighten everything up maybe would have elevated to that next level, something I got to experiment with. All right. But you can see the interplay, especially if we look at this edge here. Let me see. All right, the edge of the mushroom here. Okay, there's a definitive edge, and this is part due to the structure of the mushroom. The bottom part was relatively white, except when you get to the edge. The edge started showing a little bit more of the darker gray. So there was this natural transition. Okay, so when you're using a blend mode, it takes into account that there is slightly lighter pixels in one side than the other. All right, so it intermixes differently than the flashlight does. Okay, so the flashlight, you can see that transition is a little bit different. Okay, which one do you like better? Personal choice. Okay, which one gives you that more otherworldly feel to it? Okay, but again, I could have enhanced this with a linear blend mode. Okay. All right. Any questions on any of this? All right.
I just have a surreal observation why I like the one on the left better.
Uh,
I like the background on the right better.
yeah.
But
Well,
when you're talking surreal, at first glance, when you look at this, that shape in the middle almost looks like some sort of mushroom man, mushroom creature, mushroom, some sort of animate object. And it blends in with the other stuff, whereas the other one looks more like a rock, if you will, if you're seeing the same thing.
oh yeah,
Same,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway, that to me gives it a more surreal look because it looks like something you might see if you took a few mushrooms.
Yeah, and yeah, and part of that is because this image, I'm working with just that one base unlit image, where this one I actually I lit the top of that mushroom.
Yeah.
All right, and you can see the difference between the two. All right, and it reads. Again, it's a subtlety. It's these subtle things between the lit one and the unlit one, or the artificially lit one, I should say. Okay. But yeah, but I as far as that background, I probably could match that background a little bit better, especially if I have both files open, I can just copy one and transport it over to the other. So
Double cheating.
absolutely. Okay. So I used the mushrooms as an example because one, it was in my backyard, and two, it was something that I had seen somebody else do that I thought was just, really wild. Okay. You can find mushrooms just about anywhere. Go into any park that has woodlands, and you're gonna find wild mushrooms going all over the place. All right.
There's a lot of things, nature is abundant.
Oh yeah.
You just, look, that's all you have to look.
Yep. But there's no reason why you can't use this technique for other things as well. Just use your imagination. Maybe certain flowers. Tulips. What happens if you light the interior of a tulip? Do a nice composition of a bouquet of tulips, either in a vase or in nature, and light the interior of all the tulips to see what happens.
I saw a picture years ago, and it was natural. It was a flower, and somehow they got the sun shining from the back, so it was very much backlit.
Yep.
And I thought of what you just said. That would be interesting because I drove past this one bush that I took some pictures of last year, and I'm waiting for it to bloom again.
Yeah. I took a ride by Booth Memorial Park today. Roses aren't out yet. I think we still got. When do they come out? Roses, June, July, something like that. End of June, early July. We'll have to do something with roses. But
Hey, Doc.
yeah.
Yeah, I talked to the people at West Hartford. What's that?
Oh, Elizabeth.
Park.
Yeah.
It's end of June. End of June.
End of June. Okay. All right.
However, because we had a warm spring, they keep thinking it could happen earlier.
Oh, okay.
So I think we have to watch for that.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of these flower gardens, the public gardens, they have different flowers popping up throughout the spring and summer. Just check them out. Maybe a different type of flower will lead, give you some interesting results with this technique, of light painting the flowers. You never know. So anyway, that's it for today. My microphone is actually working and recording, so we're good to go.
I'm glad I was looking for that the other day, or else you'd be going the next 15 weeks.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So thank you for pointing that out to me.
What was funny was the intro was there, and I went to skip to look for something, and I thought, because don't tell me because of ads, they want you to see ads.
Oh yeah, no.
Audio now, it would be like them to come up with something.
Yeah.
So I tried it again, and I went, okay, I'll do it from the beginning, and then absolutely nothing after your intro. So
yeah. The intro audio gets recorded internally. The conversation gets recorded externally. My little microphone right here.
See, that's why in radio, two things. We look at a meter in front of us.
Yeah.
And we wear headphones.
I hate wearing headphones. It's not that I hate wearing the headphones. Is that on video it looks.
Yeah, it would look silly. It would look silly. But I was just saying, in radio you get the headphones, so if you can't hear yourself, then you're using the ear monitor. Yeah, and you have to use the ear monitor because if you use the program monitor, yeah.
Well, if you remember at the very, very, very beginning of me doing this, I was getting some feedback, and I had to find that balance. Yeah, I really struggled with audio, and I thought I had it friggin' nailed, and then what happens? It throws a monkey wrench into it. So, but we got through. All right. Anybody else got any questions? Alan, you got any questions? Alan number 2. Thing 1 and thing 2.
I'm good, thanks, sir.
All right, my man. Awesome.
I got a quick question for Alan Crafty. That picture you took, that was not in Florida, was it? Your new profile picture, cover picture? So it looks like a cider mill.
Oh, no, that's, Sleepy Hollow. That was
Okay.
last spring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, oh my God. There's
It was worth it to come out.
photos everywhere you look there. It's incredible. So, all righty, gentlemen. Thank you once again for joining me on another episode of Learn Photography with Duck. We will see you next week. Next week is Q&A. I'm going to be setting a date for next month for our the multiplicity shoot. So if you got friends that you think would be interested in that, please invite them along. I'll be posting it not only on the Facebook page, but I'm going to be inviting people from Milford Photo as well. So I'll be posting it on the Milford Photo meetup site as well. Okay.
Hey,
Awesome. Yeah,
Hey, after you end the recording, can we talk for a minute?
absolutely. Absolutely. Sure thing. All right. Let
Thanks
me.
for everything, Doc. Have a nice week.
All right. You too. Take care. We'll see everybody next week.
Thank you for watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.